They say the human brain has a 3-second latency period between seeing a catastrophe and processing it. A survival mechanism, I suppose. A tiny window where the car hasn't crushed you, the bullet hasn't torn the skin, and the man you've built a $10 million empire with hasn't just incinerated your life over an appetizer of scallop crudo. I lived in those 3 seconds for a long time. I'm still paying for the rent. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The ceramic clink of the plate hitting the table sounded like a gunshot in the hushed reverence of Le Bernardin. I stared at the scallops, 3 of them, arranged in a perfect geometric triangle, resting in a pool of saffron reduction that looked alarmingly like arterial blood under the low, ambient lighting. I checked my watch. 8:15. David was 45 minutes late. This wasn't like him. David was a man who scheduled his bathroom breaks. He was the chief operating officer of Ares, the company we had bled for, cried for, and starved for over the last 6 years. Punctuality was his religion. If he was late, it meant something was burning. I signaled the waiter. He was young, with a jawline that could cut glass and eyes that held a flicker of professional pity I didn't care for. He approached the table with the hesitation of someone approaching a bomb disposal unit. "Madam, would you like to order a drink while you wait?" "No," I said, my voice sounding tinny to my own ears. "He's just stuck in traffic. The FDR is a nightmare on Tuesdays. Just water. Sparkling." "Of course." He didn't move. He stood there clutching a leather folio against his chest, shifting his weight from one polished shoe to the other. The restaurant hummed around us, the soft clatter of silver on porcelain, the murmur of deals being struck, the laughter of women who didn't have to worry about their vesting schedules. "Is there a problem?" I asked, sharpening my tone. "Did the card decline for the hold?" "No, madame, it is not the card." He took a breath, the kind you take before diving into cold water. He placed the leather folio on the table. It wasn't a menu. It was too thick, too utilitarian. "This was left for you, at the host stand, a gentleman. He said you were expecting it." I stared at the folio. A black faux leather binder. No logo. "A gentleman?" I laughed, a dry, brittle sound. "David sent a courier? That's dramatic, even for him. Is it a gift? A scavenger hunt clue?" I reached for it. The waiter took a half step back. "He said to tell you, 'Happy birthday, Maya. Read the addendum.'" My hand froze. The air in the restaurant seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Read the addendum." That wasn't a birthday greeting. That was a phrase from our contract negotiations with the venture capital sharks last month. It was David's shorthand for pay attention to the fine print, or you'll get screwed. I flipped the folio open. It wasn't a scavenger hunt. It wasn't a love letter. It was a stack of legal documents thick enough to choke a horse. The header on the first page screamed in bold black font, "Notice of termination for cause and restraining order." Below that, in smaller, crueler type, "Plaintiff, David J. Sterling. Defendant, Maya E. Vance." My brain stuttered. I read the words, but they didn't make sense. It was like reading a language I used to know but had forgotten. Termination for cause? I was the CEO. I was the founder. You can't terminate the founder. We had protections. We had a dual-class stock structure. I flipped the page. My fingers felt numb, like I'd been sitting on them. Pursuant to Article 4, Section C of the Shareholder Agreement, the bad lever clause, the board has voted to remove Ms. Vance effective immediately due to gross negligence and mental incapacity. "Mental incapacity," I whispered. The waiter was still standing there. "Madame, should I call a car?" "No," I said, my voice rising. I didn't care about the hushed atmosphere anymore. "No, this is a joke. It's a prank. He's doing a bit. David." I looked around the restaurant, expecting him to pop out from behind a potted fern, grinning that crooked grin, holding the real present. But nobody looked at me. The diners kept eating. The world kept turning. I looked back at the document. Stapled to the back was a photocopy of a bank transfer, a transfer of my entire equity stake, 51% of the company, into a holding trust controlled by David. The timestamp on the transfer was 8 a.m. this morning. He had fired me 12 hours ago. He had stolen my company while I was getting a blowout for our dinner. I grabbed my phone from the table. I needed to call him. I needed to hear his voice, to hear him explain that this was a mistake, a legal strategy to protect assets from a lawsuit, anything other than what it looked like. I unlocked the screen. The background image, a photo of us in Bali, sunburnt and laughing, was gone. It was just a default gray wallpaper. A notification banner slid down from the top of the screen. System alert. Face ID has been removed from shared account Sterling Vance Joint. System alert. Password changed for iCloud Maya V. System alert. Remote wipe initiated by administrator. No, I hissed. I tapped the screen. It didn't respond. A spinning white wheel appeared in the center of the black void. No, no, no. I stabbed at the power button. Nothing. The wheel spun faster, mocking me. It was erasing everything. My emails, my texts, the voice memos of my dad before he got sick, the proof. He wasn't just breaking up with me. He was deleting me. I didn't wait for the check. I threw a $100 bill onto the table, cash I had pulled for the valet, and ran. I burst out of the revolving doors onto 51st Street, the humid city air slapping me in the face. My heels skidded on the pavement. I ignored the doorman's whistle and flagged a yellow cab that was already moving. I threw myself into the back seat before it came to a full stop. Tribeca, I gasped. Greenwich and Hubert, drive. The driver, a heavy-set man with eyes fixed on the rearview mirror, didn't argue. He punched the gas. I looked at my phone. The white wheel was still spinning. A progress bar had appeared below it, erasing 45%. Stop it! I yelled at the device, shaking it. Stop! I needed to save something. Anything. I frantically tried to recall the passcode to my secondary Dropbox, the one I used for old design files. If I could just log in before the network connection died. Erasing 60%. My fingers were trembling so hard I couldn't hit the keys on the virtual keyboard. I typed MAYA instead of MARS. Incorrect password. Damn it. The cab swerved around a delivery truck. My head slammed against the window. I didn't feel it. Erasing 75%. Think, Maya, think. If he wipes the phone, he wipes the two-factor authentication app. I won't be able to log into the bank. I won't be able to log into the company servers. I'll be locked out of my own life. I needed a code. The backup codes. I had screenshotted them 6 months ago when we updated the security protocols. Where were they? Photos? No, Photos was already gone. Notes. The Notes app. I swiped up. The phone lagged. The processor was screaming, trying to kill itself and obey my commands at the same time. Erasing 85%. I saw the Notes icon. I tapped it. It opened. Groceries, Dad's meds, wedding vows, draft 3. I scrolled down. My vision blurred. Tears? No, sweat, panic, backup codes, Aries admin. I tapped it. The screen froze. Erasing 90%. Come on, I pleaded. Please, David, don't do this. The note opened. A list of 10 8-digit numbers. I didn't have a pen. I didn't have paper. I looked at the cab driver. Do you have a pen? I screamed. What? He looked back, startled. A pen! Give me a pen! He fumbled in his shirt pocket and tossed a blue Bic over his shoulder. It landed on the floor mat. Erasing 95%. I dove for the pen. I grabbed a receipt from my purse, a crumpled Starbucks receipt from this morning. I scrambled back up. The screen flickered. 98%. I wrote the first number, 4492-1039. The second, 8831. The screen went black. Then the white Apple logo appeared. The factory reset complete. I sat there breathing hard, clutching a receipt with 1.5 codes scribbled on it. "We're here, lady," the driver said. I looked out the window, our building, the lofts. It looked the same as it had this morning. The warm glow of the lobby lights. The doorman, Henry, standing at his post. It looked like home. But as I stared at the towering glass facade, I knew it wasn't. It was a fortress, and the drawbridge had just been pulled up. I threw the cash at the driver and scrambled out. I ran to the door. Henry saw me coming. He usually smiled. He usually held the door open and asked about my dad. Tonight, he looked down at his desk. He didn't move. I grabbed the handle. Locked. I slapped my key fob against the reader. Beep! 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 Red light. I tried again. Beep! 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 "Henry!" I banged on the glass. "Henry, it's me. The fob isn't working." Henry looked up slowly. He looked pained. He pressed the intercom button. "I'm sorry, Miss Vance." His voice came through the speaker, tinny and distorted. "Mr. Sterling left strict instructions. You're not on the list anymore." "Not on the list? I own the penthouse." "Henry, open the door." "He showed me the court order, Ms. Vance. Restraining order, 500 feet. If I let you in, I lose my job. Police are already on the way." "Police?" I stepped back. "Please, Ms. Vance, don't make me call them again. Just go." He clicked the intercom off. He wouldn't look at me again. I stood on the sidewalk in my $3,000 dress, holding a dead phone and a crumpled receipt. The wind picked up, blowing trash against my ankles. He thought he had won. He thought he had locked me out. But David forgot one thing. I designed the security system for this building, and I knew the blind spot in the parking garage sensors. I didn't go to the garage. Not yet. Too risky if the police were actually coming. I walked 4 blocks to the public library on 6th Avenue. It was open late on Tuesdays. The fluorescent lights hummed with a headache-inducing frequency. The air smelled of wet wool and old paper. I found an open terminal in the back next to a man who was asleep, his head resting on a stack of National Geographics. I sat down, trying to make myself small. I needed to know the blast radius. I logged into a guest session. I typed in the URL for our bank, First Republic. I clicked Login. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Username, password. I typed them in. Access denied. Of course, he'd changed them. I tried the forgot password link. Send verification code to phone ending in 88. My phone was dead, wiped. Even if I turned it on, the SIM was probably deactivated. I was locked out of the money. I opened a new tab. I typed Aries Tech press release. There it was. Top result. Posted 2 hours ago. Aries Technologies announces leadership transition. New York, NY. Aries Technologies today announced that co-founder and CEO Maya Vance will be stepping down effective immediately to focus on personal health matters. Maya has been the heart of Aries, said David Sterling, newly appointed CEO. But the pressures of our rapid growth have taken a toll. We fully support her decision to seek the treatment she needs. We ask for privacy during this difficult time. Treatment. He was painting me as unstable. A breakdown. It was the perfect cover. If I fought back, if I screamed and accused him of theft, it would just look like a symptom of my condition. He wasn't just stealing the money, he was stealing my credibility. I felt a cold sweat prickling my hairline. I scrolled down the comments section. User 77. Always thought she looked shaky in interviews. Hope she gets help. Tech Bro, 99. Sterling was the brains anyway. Stock is going to jump on this. They believed him. Everyone believed him. Why? Why would he do this? We were a team. We were getting married in 3 months. We had just picked out the floral arrangements, white hydrangeas. He hated hydrangeas, but he agreed because I loved them. He agreed because he knew there would be no wedding. The realization hit me in the gut. He had been planning this. For how long? I thought about the last few months, the late nights at the office, the lost credit cards, the way he insisted on handling the meetings with the new investors alone because I was too busy with product. I wasn't busy. I was being quarantined. I closed the browser window. My reflection in the dark monitor looked ghostly. Pale skin, dark circles, hair frizzing from the humidity. I looked like the crazy woman he said I was. I needed to hear a friendly voice. I needed my dad. He wouldn't understand. The dementia had taken most of the present tense from him, but he would know my voice. He would call me Button. That was enough. I walked to the front desk. The librarian, a woman with glasses on a chain, looked at me suspiciously. "Can I use the landline? It's an emergency." She eyed my dress, the Cartier bracelet on my wrist. "Local calls only." I dialed the number for the Shires, the assisted living facility in Connecticut. It was late, but Mrs. Halloway, the night director, usually picked up. "The Shires. This is Susan." "Susan, it's Maya. Maya Vance." There was a pause, a long, heavy pause. "Oh, Ms. Vance." Her voice wasn't warm, it was stiff. "I'm surprised you're calling. I just wanted to check on Dad. I know it's late, but he's asleep, Ms. Vance, which is fortunate considering the confusion earlier." "Confusion? What happened?" "The auto draft, Ms. Vance. It bounced twice." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. The account has a buffer specifically for—" "The account is closed, Ms. Vance. We got a notification from the bank at 4 p.m. Account frozen due to fraud investigation." "Fraud?" I gripped the phone cord. "Susan, listen to me. There's been a mistake, a clerical error. I'm sorting it out right now." "We also received an email from Mr. Sterling," Susan interrupted. Her voice was icy now. "He informed us that due to your legal situation, he can no longer subsidize your father's care." "Subsidize? It's my money. It's my company." "Mr. Sterling attached the court order, Ms. Vance. It assigns power of attorney over your joint assets to him. He stated that the funds are being preserved for potential litigation costs." "He can't do that. You can't listen to him." "Ms. Vance, you know the policy. We are a private facility. We cannot house residents without a valid payment method on file. The retainer is depleted." "Susan, please, you know me. You know how much I love him. Don't punish him for this." "I'm not punishing him, but I have a business to run. If we don't receive a certified check for the arrears and the next 3 months by 5 p.m. tomorrow, we will have to initiate a transfer." "Transfer? Transfer where?" "To the state facility in Bridgeport. They have a bed opening Thursday morning." Bridgeport. The place with the peeling paint and the smell of urine in the hallways. The place where they sedated the patients to keep them quiet. "No," I whispered. "You can't. He won't survive there." "Then I suggest you find the money, Ms. Vance. $50,000 by 5 p.m. "Susan." Click. She hung up. I stood there, holding the dead receiver. The silence of the library pressed in on me. David knew. He knew the one thing that would break me. He wasn't just taking my company. He was holding my father hostage. I wasn't in denial anymore. The fog had lifted. This was war. I left the library. The city was darker now. I had no phone, no money, no home. But I had one thing David didn't know about: a ghost. When we founded Aries, we rented a small, shitty office in the garment district, a backup server room. We moved out 3 years ago, but I kept the lease. I paid it out of a personal account David didn't have access to. My sanity fund, I called it. A place to go when I needed to think. I kept files there, hard copies, the original incorporation papers, the raw code for the first algorithm, and, if I remembered correctly, the key to the safety deposit box where we stored the Aries Holdings documents, the shell company we used to hold the intellectual property. If I could get those papers, I could prove I owned the IP. I could stop the sale. I ran the 20 blocks. I couldn't afford a cab. By the time I reached the building on 38th Street, my feet were bleeding. The building was dark. The front door was glass, locked. I didn't have a key. I used to have a code, but the management company changed them every 6 months. I looked around. The street was empty. I walked to the side alley. The fire escape ladder was pulled up, 10 feet above the ground. I dragged a dumpster over. It was heavy, smelling of rotting fish. I climbed on top of it, the plastic lid buckling under my heels. I jumped, catching the bottom rung of the ladder. Rust flaked off into my eyes. I pulled myself up. My triceps burned. I swung my leg over the railing and scrambled up the metal stairs. 3rd floor, window 3B. I peered inside. Dark. Shapes of covered furniture. I tried the window. Locked. I took off my shoe, my 4-inch Louboutin, and hammered the heel against the corner of the glass pane. Thwack. Thwack. It wouldn't break. It was reinforced wire glass. I hit it harder. Crack. A spiderweb fracture appeared. I wrapped my hand in the hem of my dress and punched the center. The glass gave way with a sickening crunch. I reached in, unlocked the latch, and slid the window up. I climbed through, falling onto the dusty floor of the office. Weep, weep, weep. The alarm. High-pitched, piercing. It echoed off the bare walls. I froze. I hadn't thought about the alarm. I had 60 seconds before the monitoring company called the police. I scrambled to the keypad by the door. I punched in the old code, 1212, error. Think, Maya. I tried David's birthday, 1014, error. The siren was deafening. My heart hammered against my ribs. I turned away from the keypad. Forget the alarm. I needed the file. I ran to the filing cabinet in the corner. It was an old beige metal thing, locked. I didn't have time to pick it. I grabbed a heavy brass paperweight from the desk, a deal toy from our Series A round, and smashed it against the lock cylinder. 1 hit, 2 hits. The metal twisted. I jammed the paperweight into the gap and pried. The drawer popped open with a metallic screech. I rifled through the folders. Taxes 2018, lease agreements, utilities. Where was it? Aries Holdings. The siren wailed on. I could hear sirens in the distance now. Real sirens. NYPD. Come on, come on! I threw files onto the floor. There, a blue folder. Aries Holdings, LLC. I grabbed it. I didn't check it. I just shoved it under my dress, clutching it against my stomach. I ran back to the window. Blue lights flashed against the brick wall of the alleyway. They were here. I couldn't go down the fire escape. They'd see me. I looked up. The roof. I climbed back out the window and scrambled up the ladder to the roof. I threw myself over the parapet just as a spotlight swept across the fire escape below. I lay on the tar paper roof, gasping for air, the blue folder pressed into my chest. I waited for 10 minutes. The sirens faded. The police must have thought it was a false alarm, a rat tripping a motion sensor. I sat up. My dress was torn. My hands were covered in soot and rust. I looked like a refugee from a war zone. I opened the blue folder. The moonlight was bright enough to read by. Articles of incorporation, signed by Maya Vance. Operating agreement, signed by Maya Vance. Schedule A, assets. This was it. The proof that the algorithm, the crown jewel, belonged to Aries Holdings, not Aries Technologies. And Aries Holdings belonged to me. I flipped to the back page, the page where we had stapled the location of the physical RSA security token needed to access the digital wallet. The page was gone. It wasn't torn out. It had been carefully, surgically removed. The staples had been pried open and reclosed. I stared at the empty space. David had been here. He hadn't just changed the locks at home. He had swept everything. He had come to this dusty, forgotten office weeks ago, maybe months ago, and sanitized it. He left the file to give me hope, to make me run, to make me waste time. I felt a laugh bubbling up in my throat, a hysterical, jagged thing. He was thorough. I had to give him that. He was playing 4D chess while I was still trying to find the board, but he made a mistake. I ran my finger along the inside of the folder pocket. He had removed the page with the location, but he hadn't removed the sticky note I had slapped on the back of the folder 5 years ago. It was yellow, faded, and almost falling off. Code. The day we met plus the day we almost broke up. It wasn't the location of the token. It was a mnemonic, a memory trigger. David would see those dates and think they were sentimental nonsense. He wouldn't know what they meant, but I did. The token wasn't in a bank. It wasn't in a safe. It was in the one place David refused to go, the one place he thought was beneath him. I stood up. The wind whipped my hair across my face. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the hunter, and I had exactly 19 hours to get across the city, break into a staged apartment, and steal back my life. The gravel on the roof bit into my palms as I scrambled toward the darker side of the building, away from the flashing blue strobe lights washing over the alleyway below. "Police! Stay where you are!" The voice boomed from the fire escape I had just abandoned. A beam of light swept the parapet, missing my head by inches. They were climbing up. I didn't have a plan. I had an instinct. I ran toward the neighboring building. It was a pre-war textile factory, converted into overpriced lofts, sitting about 6 feet across a terrifying gap of black air. The drop was 4 stories, enough to kill you, or worse, leave you alive and paralyzed in a state facility while David liquidated your life. I looked down at my feet. One Christian Louboutin still clung to my right foot. The other was somewhere in the alley, a $600 piece of evidence. I kicked the remaining shoe off. It clattered against a ventilation duct. "Check the roof!" The voice was closer now, heavy boots on metal stairs. I stepped back, measuring the distance. 6 feet. In gym class, that was nothing. In a torn cocktail dress, barefoot on slick tar paper, with adrenaline vibrating through my bones, it looked like the Grand Canyon. I clamped the blue folder under my arm. I couldn't lose it. It was the only weapon I had left. I ran. My bare feet slapped against the grit. I hit the edge of the parapet and pushed off. For a second, I was weightless. The wind roared in my ears. I slammed into the opposite ledge. My chest hit the concrete, coping with a force that knocked the wind out of me. My legs dangled over the void. I clawed at the gravel, gasping for air that wouldn't come. My fingers scraped against rough brick. I pulled. I kicked. My knee found purchase. I rolled onto the roof of the textile building, lying on my back, staring up at the light pollution of the Manhattan sky. My chest throbbed. I checked the folder. It was crumpled, but the documents were safe. I didn't stay down. I crawled toward the roof access door of this new building. It would be locked. Roof access doors are always locked from the inside. I tried the handle. Rigid. I looked around. A skylight. A domed plastic bubble, glowing with soft yellow light from the loft below. I crawled over to it. Through the scratched plastic, I could see a living room, modern furniture. A TV flickering. No people. I felt around the edge of the skylight. There were screws holding the frame in place, rusty, old Phillips heads. I needed a tool. I dug into my clutch. Lipstick. Credit card. Useless. A nail file. It was flimsy, but the screws were corroded. I jammed the tip of the file into the first screw head. I twisted. The metal groaned. "Come on." The file bent. I adjusted my grip, using the hem of my dress for traction. The screw turned. 1 rotation. 2. It took 10 minutes to get 3 screws out. My fingers were bleeding. The police sirens had faded to a dull whine in the distance. I lifted the edge of the dome. It was heavy. I wedged my clutch under it to hold it open. I squeezed through the gap, dropping down onto a high bookshelf. I landed in a crouch, knocking over a vase of dried reeds. It shattered on the hardwood floor. Crash. I froze. "Hello?" A voice called from the bedroom. A man's voice. Sleepy. I didn't answer. I slid off the bookshelf and bolted for the front door. "Who's there?" I fumbled with the deadbolt. Turn, click. "Hey!" I threw the door open and ran into the hallway, sprinting for the stairwell. I didn't stop until I hit the street, blending into the shadows of 39th Street, a barefoot executive in a ruined dress, carrying the secrets of $100 million company against her chest. I needed to think. I needed to stop shaking. I walked 5 blocks to a 24-hour laundromat on 9th Avenue. It was empty, except for a woman watching a spinning dryer with hypnotic intensity. I went into the bathroom and locked the door. I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't Maya Vance, CEO. She was a wreck. Mascara streaked down her cheeks like war paint. Her dress was ripped at the shoulder. Her feet were black with roof tar. I turned on the tap and splashed cold water on my face. It smelled of chlorine and rust. I laid the folder on the sink. I needed to decipher the code. The day we met, plus the day we almost broke up. David thought I was sentimental. He thought I kept dates because I cared. I kept dates because I was meticulous. The day we met, October 14th, 2018, 101418, the day we almost broke up. The Series A funding round. He wanted to take money from a firm that had a history of ousting founders. We fought for 3 days. I threatened to walk. He caved. August 3rd, 2021, 080321. Those weren't coordinates. They weren't a safe combination. They were a specific location in the timeline of our relationship, the neutral ground. The apartment on 72nd Street. We bought it 2 years ago as an investment property. We never lived there. It was empty, sterile. When we fought, we used to joke that we'd go there to negotiate treaties. The token wasn't in a bank. It was physically inside that apartment. I closed my eyes, visualizing the floor plan. Where would I hide a USB key that controlled $50 million in intellectual property? Not in the safe. Too obvious. Not in the freezer. The fireplace. The apartment had a decorative, non-functional fireplace. Behind the mantel, there was a loose brick. I had pointed it out to the contractor during the inspection. We never fixed it. I had put the token there the day we closed on the property, just in case. I had forgotten about it until now. But there was a problem. The apartment was listed for sale. I had seen the listing on Zillow last week. Staged and ready. That meant new locks, a lockbox for realtors, cameras. I couldn't just break in. Not again. I was too exposed. I needed help. I needed someone who could walk through walls, or at least someone who could file an injunction to stop the sale long enough for me to get inside. I needed Marcus Thorne, my personal attorney, not the company counsel, my guy. We went to law school together before I dropped out to code. He was the godfather of my non-existent children. He would know what to do. I checked my watch. 2 a.m. He would be at his office. Marcus never slept. I tried to clean the tar off my feet with rough paper towels. It didn't work. I just smeared it. I left the laundromat and started walking uptown. Marcus's office was in a brownstone on the Upper West Side. It screamed old money and discreet billing. I rang the buzzer. Yes? His voice was gravelly over the intercom. Marcus, it's Maya. Silence, long enough for me to worry. Maya, Jesus, come up. The buzzer buzzed. I pushed the heavy oak door open. He was waiting in the doorway of his second-floor suite. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, and suspenders. He looked like he had just stepped out of a courtroom drama, except for the glass of scotch in his hand. My God, he said, looking at my feet, my dress. You look like you've been hit by a truck. I feel like it, I said, walking past him. David locked me out. He emptied the accounts. He's trying to sell the company tomorrow. Marcus closed the door and locked it. He didn't look surprised. I know, he said softly. I heard. I spun around. You heard? From who? Maya, sit down. He gestured to the leather Chesterfield sofa. Do you want a drink? I don't want a drink. I want a terrifying legal letter sent to the board of directors by 8 a.m. I have proof, Marcus. The IP for the algorithm. It's not in the company's name. It's in a holding company. Aries Holdings. I slapped the blue folder onto his mahogany desk. David can't sell what he doesn't own. We can freeze the acquisition. Marcus picked up the folder. He opened it. He scanned the pages. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He looked tired. This is good work, Maya. Smart. But? I heard the hesitation. He sighed and set the folder down. He walked around the desk and sat on the edge, facing me. Maya, David called me this morning. My stomach tightened. And he told me about the episode. The episode? There was no episode. He blindsided me at dinner. He said you were spiraling, that you threatened to burn the servers down, that you transferred company funds to a personal crypto wallet. That's a lie. He's the one who drained the accounts. I believe you, Marcus said, raising a hand. I do, but the optics, Maya. You have no access to funds. You have a restraining order against you. If we file this... He tapped the folder. It looks like retaliation. It looks like you're trying to sabotage the deal because you were fired. I was fired illegally. The board voted, Maya. It's done. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope, a thick, white envelope. David wants to help you. He knows you're struggling. He authorized me to give you this. He held it out. What is it? A settlement. A bridge loan, really, until the acquisition closes. $50,000. Cash. $50,000. Exactly the amount the care facility needed for my dad. David knew. I looked at the envelope. It was a lifeline. I could take it, pay for my dad, and walk away. He just wants you to sign a non-disparagement agreement, Marcus said gently. Just until things cool down, just so the deal goes through smoothly. You want me to take a payoff? I looked at Marcus, my friend. You want me to let him win? I want you to survive, Maya. Look at you. You have no shoes. You have no phone. You're fighting a war with a stick, and he has a nuke. Take the money. Live to fight another day. I reached for the envelope. My hand shook. Marcus exhaled a sound of relief. He took a sip of his scotch. As he raised the glass, his cuff slid back. I saw the watch. It was a Patek Philippe Nautilus, stainless steel, blue dial. David had been on the wait list for that watch for 3 years. He talked about it constantly. He said he would only buy it when he sold the company. Marcus noticed me staring. He quickly lowered his arm, pulling the cuff down. New? I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. Oh, this? Yeah. Treat to myself. Closed a big case last week. Which case? Just some corporate litigation. Boring stuff. He was lying. Marcus was a terrible liar. He blinked too much. David didn't just call Marcus this morning. David had hired Marcus, the retainer, the settlement check. It was all orchestrated. David knew I would come here. He knew Marcus was the only person I trusted. He had bought my best friend with a watch. A cold clarity washed over me. The panic was gone. The fear was gone. All that was left was a sharp, diamond-hard rage. I couldn't let him know I knew. I picked up the envelope. I weighed it in my hand. You're right, I said. I can't fight him. I'm tired, Marcus. It's for the best, Maya, Marcus said, his shoulders relaxing. Really? I just need one thing, I said. I need to clean up. Can I use your shower and maybe borrow a pair of shoes? I can't go to the bank like this. Of course, Marcus beamed. Take whatever you need. The guest suite is open. I'll order some food. Thanks, Marcus. You're a lifesaver. I walked into the bathroom. I turned on the shower, full blast. Then I opened the medicine cabinet. I wasn't looking for aspirin. I grabbed a bottle of heavy-duty sleeping pills, benzodiazepines. I crushed 3 of them into a fine powder on the marble vanity, using the bottom of the glass tumbler. I wasn't going to take them. I walked back out. Marcus was on the phone, his back to me. She took it. Yeah, she's calm. No, she doesn't suspect... I stood there, listening. He was reporting to David. I walked over to the bar cart. His scotch bottle was there. I poured a fresh glass. I slid the powder into it, swirled it. "Marcus?" He jumped and spun around, hanging up the phone instantly. "Hey, everything okay?" "Just wanted a drink," I said, holding out the glass. "To old friends." He smiled, the smile of a man who thinks he has gotten away with it. "To old friends." He took the glass. He drank. I waited 20 minutes. Marcus was slumped on the Chesterfield, snoring softly. The empty glass sat on the floor. I moved quickly. I took his wallet, $200 in cash, his American Express black card. I took his phone. I held it up to his sleeping face. Face ID unlocked. I scrolled through his texts. David Sterling. "Did she take the bait?" Marcus. "Hook, line, and sinker. She's washing up. I have the file." I deleted the thread. I went to his closet. I found a pair of running shoes. His size, too big, but better than nothing. I found a trench coat. I grabbed the blue folder from his desk. I had resources now. But I was running out of time. It was 7 a.m. The open house for the apartment on 72nd Street started at 9 a.m. I needed that key. I used Marcus's phone to call a Uber. I had it drop me 2 blocks away. I spent the next hour in a Starbucks using Marcus's phone to create a fake identity. Sarah Jenkins, interior designer. I booked a viewing slot for 9:15 a.m. through the online portal. I walked to the building. It was a limestone pre-war. The doorman didn't know me here. We had never moved in. "I'm here for the open house, Unit 4B. Name? Sarah Jenkins." "Go on up." I took the elevator. My heart hammered against my ribs. The door to 4B was propped open. A real estate agent with a smile that looked like it had been surgically attached was arranging flowers on the console table. "Hi, welcome, I'm Jessica." "Sarah," I said, pulling the trench coat tighter. "Just looking for a client." "Feel free to look around. It's a stunning unit." Pre-war details, but fully modernized. I walked into the living room. It was staged with beige furniture, bland, soulless. I looked at the fireplace. There it was, the brick. 3rd row from the bottom, 2nd from the left. It looked undisturbed. I needed a distraction. I couldn't just start prying bricks out of the wall while Jessica was standing there. "Is the wiring updated?" I asked. My client is very particular about smart home integration. "Oh, absolutely," Jessica chirped. "Everything is Cat 6. The panel is in the master closet. Let me show you." She turned to lead me down the hall. I followed her. But as she entered the bedroom, I stopped. "1 second," I called out. "Just checking the view." I darted back to the fireplace. I knelt down. I dug my fingernails into the mortar line. It crumbled. "Miss Jenkins?" Jessica called from the bedroom. "Coming!" I wiggled the brick. It moved. I pulled it out. A dark cavity. I reached in. My fingers brushed against dust. Cobwebs. And then, cold metal. A small silver key. I grabbed it. I shoved the brick back in. "Miss Jenkins?" Jessica appeared in the hallway looking confused. I stood up, dusting my hands on the trench coat. "Sorry," I said. I don't think this is going to work. The feng shui is off." I walked past her. "Wait, don't you want a brochure?" "No, thanks." I reached the door, and then I froze. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. David stepped out. He was wearing a charcoal suit. He looked perfect, rested, victorious. He was talking to a man in a hard hat. "Tear down this wall, open up the concept." He looked up. His eyes met mine. For a second, he didn't recognize me. The trench coat, the oversized shoes, the messy hair. Then, his eyes widened. "Maya!" I didn't wait. I shoved past him, slamming my shoulder into his chest. "Hey!" I hit the stairwell door. "Maya, stop!" I heard his footsteps behind me, heavy, fast. I flew down the stairs, flight after flight. I burst into the lobby. The doorman looked up, startled. "Stop her!" David yelled from the landing above. "Security!" I hit the street. I didn't look back. I hailed a cab that was offloading a passenger. I jumped in before they were out. "Drive!" I screamed. "Just drive!" I had the key. I sat in the back of the cab, clutching the small piece of silver metal like it was a religious artifact. It was a safety deposit box key. First Republic Bank, Rockefeller Center branch. That was where the physical token was. The key was just the access. The token was the weapon. I checked Marcus's phone. 10:30 a.m. The acquisition closed at noon. I had 90 minutes. Rockefeller Center, I told the driver. We hit traffic on 6th Avenue. Of course. I paid the driver with Marcus's cash and ran the last 3 blocks. I entered the bank. The marble floors, the hushed atmosphere. I walked to the safety deposit desk. "I need to access box 404, I told the attendant. "Name? It's under Aries Holdings. Do you have the key?" "Yes." I slapped it on the counter. "An identification?" I froze. I didn't have my ID. David had it. I lost it, but I have the key, and I know the password. The attendant looked skeptical. "I can't let you in without ID, ma'am. Federal regulations." "Please," I leaned in. "It's an emergency. Call the manager, Mr. Henderson. He knows me." She hesitated, then she picked up the phone. 2 minutes later, Henderson appeared. He looked nervous. "Ms. Vance?" "Mr. Henderson, thank God. I need to get into the box." He looked at the attendant, then back at me. "Ms. Vance, we received a notice this morning." "What notice?" "A court order, freezing all assets associated with Mr. Sterling and yourself, including the boxes." "This isn't Mr. Sterling's box. It's Aries Holdings. It's a separate entity." "The order lists Aries Holdings as a subsidiary." David. He was thorough. "Mr. Henderson," I said, my voice low, "if you don't let me in that box, I will sue this bank for obstruction of justice. That box contains time-sensitive legal documents that prove the order is fraudulent." He sweated. He knew David, but he also knew me. He knew I brought $10 million of business to this branch. 5 minutes, he whispered. "I'll turn off the camera for 5 minutes, but if anyone asks, I never saw you." "Thank you." He led me to the vault. He used his master key. I used my silver key. The lock turned. He pulled the long metal box out and set it on the table. 5 minutes. He left the room. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely lift the lid. I threw it open. I stared. The box was empty. No, not empty. There was a single sheet of paper inside, a folded piece of stationery. I unfolded it. It was David's handwriting, elegant, sharp. "I told you to rest, Maya. You look tired." I stared at the note. He had been here. When? How? He didn't have the key. I had the key. Unless there was a duplicate. I remembered the day we opened the box. David had made a joke about losing keys. He had asked for a second one. I thought he put it in the company's safe. He had kept it. He knew I would go to the apartment. He knew I would find the key. He knew I would come here. He was watching. I looked up at the corner of the room. A small red light on the security camera blinked. He wasn't turning off the cameras. He was watching the feed. My phone, Marcus's phone, buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Check the timestamp on the video file I just sent you." I clicked the link. A video. Grainy footage. It showed David walking into this vault. The timestamp was 9 a.m. yesterday, before dinner, before he fired me. He had emptied the box 24 hours ago. I sank to the floor. The metal was cold against my legs. I had nothing. No token, no proof, no money. And in 90 minutes he would sell my life's work and erase me completely. I walked out of the bank. The heavy glass doors swung shut behind me with a pneumatic hiss that sounded like a final breath. It was 11 in the morning. The city was screaming with life. Tourists were taking selfies in front of the Atlas statue, holding the world on his shoulders. I knew how he felt. Except he was bronze, and I was flesh, and my knees were buckling under the weight of the invisible sky I was holding up. I sat down on the low stone wall of a planter box, heedless of the pigeon droppings or the damp soil. I pulled the oversized trench coat tight around me. I was shivering, a deep, bone-rattling cold that had nothing to do with the temperature. I had failed. David had won. He was sitting in our office right now, probably signing the final papers, drinking the scotch I bought him for our anniversary, laughing at how easy it had been to erase my advance. I looked at Marcus's phone. The battery icon was red, 12%. I should call the care facility. I should tell Susan to pack my father's things. I should tell her to be gentle when they move him to the state home, to make sure he has his favorite cardigan because he gets cold easily. I unlocked the phone. I opened the photo gallery, scrolling past Marcus's mundane life. Receipts, selfies, pictures of his cat, until I found the one photo I had texted him a month ago. It was a picture of Dad and me at the company launch party 5 years ago. He was lucid then. He was holding a glass of champagne, beaming at me with that fierce, unshakable pride. "You built this, Button," he had said that night. "Don't let them take the bricks. You laid them yourself." I touched the screen. His face was pixelated under my thumb. He didn't know who I was anymore. Yesterday, when I visited, he asked if I was the new nurse, but he was safe. He was warm. If I gave up now, he would die in a hallway in Bridgeport, confused and alone. A tear leaked out, hot and angry. I wiped it away with a dirty knuckle. I couldn't give up. I wasn't allowed to give up. But where was the token? I closed my eyes, forcing my brain to stop screaming and start processing. I went back to the video David sent me. The timestamp. Yesterday morning. He walked into the vault. He opened the box. He took the token. He put it in his pocket. Where did he go after that? He didn't go home. I was home. He didn't come to dinner until 8. He went to the office. He would want it close. David was possessive. He didn't trust lawyers with the crown jewels. He didn't trust banks. He only trusted what he could see and touch. He would put it in the one place he felt was the center of his universe, the place where he felt most powerful, his office safe, the Iron Throne. It was a fortress, biometric scanners, armed security in the lobby, and David, who was currently living there, it was impossible. But impossible was just an engineering problem I hadn't solved yet. I stood up. My legs were steady. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. The acquisition closed at noon, but the wire transfers wouldn't clear until the end of the business day. The legal transfer of the IP happened when the token was physically handed over or the digital keys were transmitted. If I could get the token before the final handshake, I could stop the transmission. I walked to a public Wi-Fi kiosk. I used Marcus's phone to log into the building directory for our office tower. I needed a way in. My badge was deactivated. My face was flagged. I scrolled through the employee list, operations, engineering, sales. I stopped at a name, Chloe Miller, the new intern. I had hired her last week. She was bright, eager, and terrified of making a mistake. She had just started, which meant she hadn't been fully onboarded into the Maya is a villain narrative yet. She was still in the probationary period where she would do anything to please a superior. I checked the time. 11:15. Chloe would be at her desk, probably organizing lunch orders or formatting spreadsheets. I needed to become someone else. I couldn't be Maya Vance, the ousted CEO. I dialed the main line of the office. Ares Technologies. How can I direct your call? The receptionist, Brenda. She had been with us for years. She would know my voice. I hung up. I needed a direct line. I searched my memory. Chloe's extension. It was the old marketing desk. Extension 449. I dialed again. Ring, ring. "This is Chloe," a breathless voice answered. "Chloe," I said, pitching my voice lower, authoritative but clipped. "This is Sarah from IT security down on the 4th floor. We're flagging some irregular activity on your badge access." Oh no, what did I do? Panic, instant and visceral. Nothing yet, I said, keeping the tempo fast, but the system is showing a sync error with the main server. I need to reset your credentials manually or your badge is going to lock you out of the building when you go for lunch. Oh, God, please don't let that happen. Mr. Sterling is asking for the binders by 12. I can fix it right now, Chloe, but I need you to verify your employee ID number and your current temporary password. Okay. My ID is 8920, and the password is, welcome 2025. Great, hold on. I made typing noises with my tongue against the roof of my mouth. Okay, I'm resetting it. I'm going to send a push notification to your phone. Do not accept it. That's the old code. I need you to read me the 6-digit override code that pops up on your Authenticator app. Okay, I'm opening the app. I held my breath. This was the gamble. I was trying to log into the remote access portal using her credentials on Marcus's phone. I typed in her ID and password. Welcome 2025. Enter. A box popped up on my screen. Enter 2FA code. Okay, Chloe said. It says 903441. Perfect, I said. Thanks, Chloe. You're all set. Badge should work fine. Thank you so much, Sarah. I hung up. I typed the code. Access granted. I was in the system, but I wasn't in the building. I navigated to the Visitor Management tab. I could issue a temporary QR code for a vendor. I typed in a name, Marcus Thorne. Reason, legal counsel. I hit Issue Pass. A QR code appeared on the screen. I took a screenshot. I had a key. Now I just had to walk into the lion's den without getting eaten. I couldn't go in looking like a homeless person. The lobby guards at Aries were ex-military. They profiled people based on shoes and haircuts. I had Marcus's trench coat, which was expensive but ill-fitting. I had his running shoes. I walked into a CVS on 8th Avenue. I bought a cheap pair of reading glasses, a bottle of hair gel, and a pack of wet wipes. I went into the alley behind the store. I used the wet wipes to scrub the remaining soot from my face and neck. It stung, raw and chemical. I slicked my hair back tight against my skull with the gel, creating a severe, no-nonsense bun. I put on the glasses. I buttoned the trench coat all the way to the chin to hide the torn dress. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window of a parked car. I didn't look like Maya Vance, the tech darling. I looked like a tired, overworked lawyer. It would have to do. I walked to the office tower. The glass monolith rose 50 stories into the sky. I pushed through the revolving doors. The lobby was a cavern of marble and echoing footsteps. I walked straight to the turnstiles. I didn't make eye contact with the security desk. I pulled up the QR code on Marcus's phone. I held it under the scanner. Beep. Red light. Invalid entry. My heart stopped. Ma'am? A security guard stepped out from behind the desk. He was huge, with a neck that was wider than my head. The reader is finicky, I said, forcing a bored, annoyed tone. My client is waiting upstairs, Mr. Sterling. Let me see the pass. He held out his hand. I showed him the phone screen. My hand was trembling. I gripped the phone tighter to hide it. He squinted at the screen. Thorne? Marcus Thorne? Yes, I said, I'm his associate. He sent me ahead with the files. He looked at me. He looked at the trench coat. He looked at the men's running shoes peeking out from the hem. You're wearing sneakers, ma'am. Plantar fasciitis. I lied smoothly. My podiatrist insists. He stared at me for a long second. Then he shrugged. Try the other scanner, number 4. It reads better. I walked to scanner 4. Please. I held the phone under the red eye. Beep. Green arrow. The gate swung open. I walked through. I didn't run. I walked at a measured, professional pace toward the elevator bank. As the doors closed, I let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in my lungs for a year. I was in. The elevator shot up. My ears popped. Floor 40, Aries Technologies. The doors opened. I stepped out into the reception area. It was silent. The lights were dimmed to eco mode, casting long shadows across the polished concrete floors. It was lunchtime. Most of the staff would be in the cafeteria or out. But not David. David never ate lunch. I needed to get to the executive suite in the corner. I walked down the main corridor. The glass-walled conference rooms were empty, ghost towns of whiteboards covered in diagrams I had drawn. I heard voices ahead. 2 engineers were walking toward me, arguing about code. I ducked into a supply closet. I pressed my ear against the door. My heart hammered against the wood. Whoa. Sterling is firing everyone in QA next week, one said. Seriously? Man, I miss Maya. She never would have done that. Maya is gone, dude. Crazy, right? They passed. I waited a full minute. Then I slipped back out. I reached the double glass doors of the executive suite. They were frosted. I couldn't see inside. I tried the handle. Locked. Of course. I needed a badge. A specific badge. I looked around. There was a desk nearby. The executive assistant's desk. Empty. A half-eaten salad sat on the blotter. I walked over. I checked the drawers. Locked. I checked under the keyboard. Nothing. Then I saw it. A lanyard hanging on the back of the chair. Visitor, escorted access only. It wouldn't open the suite. I needed the EA's badge. Where was she? I heard a toilet flush. The executive restroom was right there. The door opened. I dove under the desk. The EA, a woman named Sarah, ironic, walked out. She was humming. She sat down in the chair above me. I curled into a ball, praying my trench coat didn't rustle. I could smell her perfume. Chanel Chance. She typed for a moment, then her phone rang. Yes, Mr. Sterling. No, I have the lunch order right here. Yes, no onions. I'll bring it in 5 minutes. She hung up. She stood up. She walked away toward the break room kitchen. I scrambled out. She had left her badge on the desk. I grabbed it. Sarah Jenkins, executive admin. I ran to the glass doors. I tapped the badge. Click. The lock disengaged. I slipped inside the suite and let the door close softly behind me. The suite was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson. David's office was at the far end. The door was ajar. I crept closer. The carpet swallowed my footsteps. I peered through the crack. David was there. He wasn't working. He was lying on the leather couch, one arm thrown over his eyes. His suit jacket was draped over a chair. His tie was loosened. He was asleep. The arrogance of it. The sheer, unadulterated confidence. He was about to sell my company, destroy my life, and he was taking a nap. I scanned the room. The safe was behind his desk, hidden behind a panel in the wainscoting. I had to cross the room. I had to walk past him. If he woke up, it was over. He would call security. I would be arrested for trespassing and corporate espionage. I took a step. The floorboard creaked. David shifted. He mumbled something. Evaluations. I froze. I waited. His breathing deepened again. I moved. 1 step, 2 steps. I reached the desk. I crouched down. I found the panel. I pressed the hidden latch. It popped open. The safe face was revealed. A digital keypad. I stared at the numbers. I knew the combination. It was the one thing David never changed. He was sentimental about one thing, his own cleverness. He used my birthday because he thought he owned me. August 12th, 08121994. I reached out. My finger hovered over the 0. Beep. The sound was soft, but in the silence, it sounded like a foghorn. David stirred on the couch. I ducked behind the desk. "Sarah," he called out, his voice groggy. I held my breath. I pressed my hand over my mouth. "Sarah, where is that salad?" He sat up. I heard the leather creak. He stood up. He was walking toward the desk. I squeezed myself into the knee hole of the desk. It was tight. I was curled into a ball of panic. He stopped right in front of the desk. I could see his shoes, polished Oxfords. He leaned against the desk right above me. He picked up the phone. "Sarah?" Where the hell are you?" He slammed the receiver down. He sighed. He walked away toward the door. "Useless," he muttered. He walked out of the office. I didn't wait. I scrambled out from under the desk. I punched in the rest of the code. -1994, click. The green light flashed. I pulled the handle. The heavy door swung open. The safe was full of papers, passports, cash. And there, on the top shelf, sitting in a velvet jewelry box, was the token. It was a small silver USB drive, the iron key. I grabbed it. It was cold in my hand. I had it. I closed the safe. I spun the handle. I turned to leave. And then I saw the laptop on his desk. It was open. It was logged in. David's personal laptop. I shouldn't. I should just run. But I needed to be sure. I needed to know the transfer hadn't happened yet. I touched the trackpad. The screen woke up. It was a dashboard. Transfer pending. Recipient Horizon Corp. Status, awaiting physical key authentication. It wasn't done yet. I was in time. I pulled the token out of my pocket. If I plugged it in here, I could cancel the transfer. I could reroute the IP back to Ares Holdings, but it would take time. The encryption handshake took 3 minutes. 3 minutes. David was just getting a salad. He would be back in 2. I looked at the door. I looked at the USB port. I made a choice. I plugged the token in. Recognized. Initiating secure protocol. Divi Presenti. "Come on," I whispered. "Desmit Presenti." I heard footsteps in the hall. Fast, angry footsteps. "I don't care if the elevator is slow, Sarah. Get it here." He was coming back. 25%. I couldn't stay. I yanked the token out. Hardware removal error. I didn't care. I grabbed the laptop. I took the whole damn thing. I shoved it under my trench coat. It was bulky, awkward. I ran to the window. We were on the 40th floor. No fire escape. I had to go out the way I came. I reached the door of the office just as the handle turned. David was opening the door. I dove behind the heavy velvet drapes that covered the window wall. The door opened. David walked in. "Finally," he said. He walked to his desk. Silence. "Where is it?" He noticed the laptop was gone. "What the—" He spun around. "Who's there?" I pressed myself against the glass. The city was spread out below me, a grid of indifference. "Security!" David yelled. He hit the panic button on his desk. The alarm began to blare. "Weep, weep, weep!" He ran to the door. I waited until his back was turned. I slipped out from the curtains. I didn't run for the door. He was blocking it. I ran for the private bathroom attached to the office. I locked the door. I opened the window. It was a small ventilation window, barely 18 inches wide. I looked out. There was a maintenance ledge. It was a foot wide, 50 stories up. I put the laptop in the oversized pocket of the trench coat. I put the token in my bra. I climbed onto the toilet. I pushed myself through the window. The wind hit me like a physical blow. It tore at my coat, trying to peel me off the building. I stepped onto the ledge. I didn't look down. I shuffled sideways, pressing my face against the cold glass of the building. Inside the office, I could see David tearing the room apart. He looked at the bathroom door. He started kicking it. Thud, thud. I kept moving. 10 feet to the corner. Around the corner was the service elevator maintenance hatch. The door gave way with a crash. David burst into the bathroom. He saw the open window. He ran to it. He stuck his head out. His eyes met mine. "Maya!" he screamed. The wind tore the name from his lips. He reached out. His hand grasped at the air, inches from my coat. I didn't stop. I turned the corner. I was out of sight. I reached the hatch. It was rusted shut. I pulled. My fingernails broke. "Come on," it gave way. I threw myself inside into the dark, greasy shaft of the service elevator. I fell onto the top of the elevator cab, landing hard on my shoulder. The laptop crunched against the metal. I lay there in the darkness, the smell of grease and fear choking me. I had the token. I had the computer. But I was trapped in an elevator shaft 50 floors up, and the man who wanted to destroy me knew exactly where I was. The elevator shaft smelled of ozone and ancient grease. I was perched on top of the cab, 50 floors of death waiting below me in the dark. I heard David screaming my name from the open maintenance hatch above. The beam of his phone flashlight sliced through the gloom, missing my shoulder by inches. "Maya, don't be stupid. There's nowhere to go." He was wrong. There was always somewhere to go if you didn't mind getting dirty. I grabbed the greasy steel cable nearest to me. It was thick, coated in decades of lubricant. I wrapped the hem of Marcus's trench coat around my hands to protect them. I slid. The friction burned through the fabric instantly. I bit my tongue to keep from screaming. I dropped 10 feet, 20 feet, landing hard on a structural I-beam 3 floors down. I scrambled toward the service ladder, bolted to the concrete wall. My arms screamed in protest. I climbed down, rung by rung, counting them to keep the panic at bay. 47, 46. I couldn't go to the lobby. David would have the guards locking down the perimeter. I needed the basement, the loading dock. I hit the sub-level landing. I kicked the door open. It was a maze of pipes and steam. I navigated toward the smell of diesel exhaust. A massive Cisco food delivery truck was idling at the bay, its rear doors open. A worker in a blue jumpsuit was signing a clipboard. I waited behind a stack of pallets. The moment the driver climbed into the cab and the engine roared, I moved. I didn't jump in the back. That was for movies. I slipped out the side pedestrian door while the automatic gate was rising for the truck. The noise of the engine masked the slam of the metal door behind me. I was out. The midtown sunlight hit me like a physical blow. I blinked, tears streaming down my soot-streaked face. I looked at the laptop in my hands. The screen was spiderwebbed with cracks where it had hit the elevator roof. I needed a connection, and I needed it now. David's laptop was encrypted, but the battery light was flashing red, low power. I ran down the alley, emerging onto 8th Avenue. I couldn't go to a Starbucks. Too public. Too many cameras. I saw a neon sign flickering in a basement window. Land Center and Repair. A gamer dungeon. I burst in. The air smelled of Red Bull and unwashed bodies. Rows of teenagers in headsets were screaming at monitors. I slammed a $20 bill, Marcus's money, onto the counter. "I need a hardline," I rasped, "and a USB-C charger. Now." The guy behind the counter, a kid with purple hair, looked at my trench coat, my bleeding hands, the cracked laptop. He didn't ask questions. He pointed to a station in the back corner. I sat down. I plugged in. The laptop whirred to life, the fan screaming like a dying jet engine. I jammed the token into the side port. Device recognized. Aries iron key. My heart hammered against my ribs. I navigated to the hidden partition. Execute sale protocol. Initiating upload to Horizon Corp secure server. The progress bar appeared. It was crawling. Estimated time, 4 minutes. I checked the time, 11:52 a.m. 8 minutes until David's deal closed. Upload 10%. The screen flickered. The crack in the LED panel made the numbers look broken. Warning, network connection unstable. "No," I whispered. "Don't you dare." I stared at the progress bar. It hung at 20%. I looked around the room. Every shadow looked like a security guard. Every person walking in the door looked like David. Paranoia was a cold worm in my gut. Was the kid with purple hair texting someone? Was he calling the cops? I pulled Marcus's phone out of my pocket. No signal. We were underground. I was invisible to the world, but the world was invisible to me. I looked back at the screen. Connection lost. Retrying. "Come on," I hit the enter key, as if physical force could push the data through the cable. I grabbed the Ethernet cable. The clip was broken. It was loose in the port. I had to hold it. I pressed my thumb against the plastic connector, jamming it into the laptop. Connection restored. Upload 45%. My thumb cramped. I didn't move. I watched the clock on the wall. 11:55 a.m. I thought about David. He would be back in his office by now. He would see the safe open. He would see the laptop gone. He would be checking the transfer status on his phone. He would see the interception. Upload 75%. The door to the land center opened. A police officer walked in. My blood froze. He walked to the counter. "Hey, Jerry, any coffee left?" "Fresh pot, officer," the purple-haired kid said. I lowered my head, hiding behind the cracked screen. I held the cable so tight my nail turned white. The officer poured a cup. He looked around the room. His gaze swept over the rows of gamers. He looked at the corner, at me. I held my breath. I didn't look up. I stared at the progress bar, 90%. "Rough night?" the officer called out. I nodded, keeping my face down. "Deadlines," I muttered. He chuckled. "Tell me about it." He paid and left. I exhaled. A shudder went through my whole body. Upload 98%, 99%. Upload complete. Transaction pending confirmation. I had the gun loaded. Now I just had to pull the trigger. I didn't press enter yet. I needed him to know. I pulled up the contact list on the laptop. I initiated a VoIP call to David's cell. He picked up on the first ring. "Where are you?" His voice wasn't angry. It was terrified. "It doesn't matter," I said. "I'm looking at the dashboard, David. You have a pending sale to Vulture Capital for $40 a share." "Maya, listen to me. Stop. Whatever you are doing, stop." "I have a better offer," I said, my voice steady. "Horizon Corp, $55 a share, and they want the IP that I own." "You can't sell it. It's company property." "It's property of Ares Holdings, and I'm the sole signatory. Check your email, David. I just sent you the transfer notification. Maya, if you do this, you kill the company. Horizon will strip it for parts. They'll fire everyone." "They'll fire you," I corrected. "Everyone else is just an engineer. They need engineers. They don't need a CEO who steals from his fiancé." "I didn't steal. I was protecting us." He was screaming now. I could hear the background noise of his office. He was running. "I was managing the debt. I gambled, okay? I leveraged the Series B funding and I lost it. I needed this sale to cover the hole before the auditors found it." The truth. Finally. "You gambled the company," I said, "and you tried to frame me for your incompetence. I can fix it. Just bring the token back. We can split the money. Maya, please, I love you." "I loved you too," I said. I looked at the clock. 11:59 a.m. "Happy birthday, David." I pressed enter. Transaction confirmed. "No!" The scream over the speakers was so loud the gamer kid next to me jumped. "No, no, no, you bitch, you ruined everything." I hung up. I closed the laptop. I sat there in the dark basement surrounded by the glow of alien worlds on 50 screens, and I felt absolutely nothing. I walked out of the land center. I found a bench on the corner of 42nd Street. I sat down. I needed to check one last thing. I used Marcus's phone to log into the Ares Holdings offshore account, the one linked to the sale. I refreshed the page. Balance, $0. My heart stopped. Did it fail? Did David stop it? I refreshed again. Balance, $55 million. $55 million. I stared at the number. It looked like a phone number. It didn't look like money. It looked like freedom. I dialed the care facility. "Susan," I said. "Ms. Vance, I was just about to call the movers. The deadline is—" "Check the wire," I interrupted. "It should be clearing right now." "Ms. Vance, I told you—" I heard typing on the other end. Then silence. A long, stunned silence. "Ms. Vance, this is $2 million. That covers the next 10 years, I said. "And I want him moved to the suite with the garden view today." "Of course. Immediately." I apologize for the earlier confusion. "One more thing, Susan. If a man named David Sterling tries to visit him, Or if a lawyer named Marcus Thorne calls, you tell them he doesn't have a daughter. You tell them he's alone. I understand. Tell him, my voice cracked. Tell him Button says the bricks are safe. Tell him nobody is going to take the house. I will. He's eating lunch right now. He's happy, Maya. Thank you. I lowered the phone. I put my head in my hands. I sobbed. Not a polite cry. A deep, ugly, heaving sob that shook my shoulders. A tourist couple walked by and gave me a wide berth. I had saved him. I had won. But I had never felt more alone in my life. I didn't leave the city immediately. I had one loose end. David texted me, not a threat, a location. The pier, 1 p.m. Please. I went. He was standing by the railing looking out at the murky water of the East River. He looked smaller than I remembered. His suit jacket was gone. His shirt was untucked. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a boy who had broken a window. I walked up to him. I stayed 5 feet away. You look terrible, he said, turning to me. I had a rough morning. Horizon called, he said. They're sending a transition team at 2. They're escorting me out of the building. I know. Why didn't you just talk to me, Maya? He shook his head, a look of genuine confusion on his face. Why did you have to go nuclear? You served me with a restraining order at dinner, David. It was a legal maneuver. It wasn't real. I was going to drop it once the deal closed. I was going to take us to the Maldives. I was going to explain everything. He took a step toward me. His eyes were wide, sincere. The scariest part was that he believed it. He actually believed he was the hero of this story. I did it for us, he said. You were always too soft for the business side. You let people walk all over you. I had to be the bad guy to save the kingdom. You weren't saving the kingdom, I said quietly. You were selling it to pay your bookie. Everyone has debts, Maya. That's how leverage works. He reached for my hand. We can still fix this. You have the cash. We can start over. A new company. Just you and me. Like the garage days. I looked at his hand. Manicured. Soft. I remembered the feel of the grease on the elevator cable. The burn on my palms. There is no us, David, I said. You erased us when you wiped my phone. Maya, don't be dramatic. We're partners. No, I said. We were partners. Now I'm just a creditor. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the key to the apartment, the one I stole from the brick. I tossed it to him. He caught it, reflexively. You can keep the apartment, I said. I hear the market is crashing. I walked away. I didn't look back, even when he started shouting. You'll never make it without me. You're just a coder. You need me. His voice faded into the city noise. I hailed a cab. JFK, I said. International Terminal. I sat in the back. I pulled out Marcus's phone. I had $55 million and I had no contacts. I opened the contact list. Marcus Thorne. I hit delete. David Sterling. I hit delete. I scrolled through the rest. Friends who hadn't called, investors who had sided with David, the entire ecosystem of my life in New York. I selected select all, delete. The phone was empty, a clean slate. We arrived at the terminal. I threw the phone into a trash can outside the entrance. I walked to the ticket counter. Next flight to Zurich, I told the agent. One way. Do you have luggage? I looked down at my ruined trench coat, my dirty running shoes, my soot-stained hands. No, I said. I'm traveling light. She printed the boarding pass. I walked through security. I didn't beep. I didn't flag. I was just another passenger. I sat in the lounge, watching the planes taxi on the tarmac. I ordered a glass of champagne, the expensive stuff. I took a sip. It tasted cold and crisp. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad. I was hardened, like steel that had been tempered in fire. David was right about one thing. The Maya he knew was gone. She died in that elevator shaft. The woman sitting in the lounge was someone new. Someone who checked the exits before she sat down. Someone who knew that the only person who would ever truly save her was herself. I raised my glass to the reflection in the window. Happy birthday, I whispered. They tell you that success is about partnership, that it's about finding someone who shares your vision, your passion, your drive. They sell you the dream of the power couple, building an empire back to back against the world. But they forget to tell you the fine print. When you build an empire with someone, you aren't just giving them your heart. You're giving them the blueprints to your destruction. You are showing them exactly where the load-bearing walls are. I used to think trust was the foundation of love. Now I know better. Trust is a vulnerability exploit. It's a backdoor you leave open in your own firewall. I'm safe now. I have money. I have power. I have a view of the Alps. But I sleep with my passport under my pillow and a second phone that no one knows about hidden in the vent. Is it a lonely life? Maybe. But at least I know who holds the keys. If you found out your partner was secretly drowning in debt and stole your life's work to fix it without telling you, would you take the money and destroy them like Maya did? Or would you try to save them from themselves? Tell me below. Are you Team Justice or Team Mercy? Aoi? If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.